Test.
Okay, welcome. The clock on the wall says 2 o'clock, which means it is 1 o'clock, and it is time to begin. Okay. So we'll call the meeting to order at this point at 2:01. And we have a very lively and interesting agenda ahead of us. We have a couple of guests here to introduce the food hub concept, along with a few food chi representatives and Sooke Region Food Network in the audience, along with Marlene, our Chamber of Commerce and CERTA representative. And for the first time in today's agenda, we have a dedicated spot on the agenda for our advisory groups to speak. Yeah, so I will note that we are meeting today on the traditional territories of the Sooke and Shianu nations. And I just want to note that First Nations recognitions have been questioned of late. The one BC member of Parliament, a member of the legislature, introduced a private member's bill called the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act, and that was back on October 22nd. And 88 of the 93 MLAs voted down the bill in the legislature that morning, and basically, reaffirming the importance of these land acknowledgements. So just having said that, let's get an approval of the agenda, please. So moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Beddoes. All approve? Yes. And we have the adoption of the September 3rd minutes. So moved by Beddoes, seconded by St. Pierre, and all approve? Yes. Okay, public question and comment period. We have Mrs. Lures in the audience, who usually takes this opportunity, but maybe not today. Not today. Okay. Oh, yes. Mark of respect for an engaged community member. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Lures. I just read briefly over your agenda. I didn't have much time, but I think I've talked to you about this before, Chair, about the adornments and things that we put up in Sooke and the cost that's attached to them. And I remember back when we were many councillors ago, for Christmas, we would actually make our own adornments. We made the Christmas swags and got together as groups. Many of us got together. It was a fun thing. And then hung them up about Sooke. And it's kind of disappointing to see us putting up metal Christmas trees and all these fake things when Sooke is wild by nature. And it's kind of counterproductive, in my opinion. And I think it'd be really nice if we had in our center roundabout, if we had a BC flag and a Canadian flag flying in there permanently. That's it. And thank you.
All right, any further comments at this point? No? Okay. So we're into our, I've got the wrong agenda open here. We're into our invited delegation, the POD project. And gentlemen, please, maybe to get Christina.
Great, thank you. I will invite our guests up to the table here, please. But this report introduces the POD project, a proposal to establish a shared food and makers hub here in Sooke. The project is led by a team of 3 MBA graduates from the University of Victoria, each bringing strong backgrounds in sustainable innovation, environmental management, and regenerative business practices. Their concept focuses on lowering barriers for small food and beverage entrepreneurs, improving local food security, and strengthening our circular economy. While I'll leave the details to the project team, I do want to note at the outset, that the recommendation before the committee is to defer the project, to the Sooke Region Food Systems Network for further discussion and exploration. This step would allow the network, whose members include growers, producers, educators, and social entrepreneurs, the opportunity to review the concept and provide feedback on feasibility, community fit, and partnership opportunities. With that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Kevin and his team to share more about the POD project.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. Thanks for that warm introduction. Yeah, so we're very excited to be here today to present to you guys the business idea of the POD. The POD is a social enterprise whose mission it is to foster food security and economic development in Sooke and the Wanafika corridor communities. It's a shared use processing facility, commissary, and commercial kitchen that offers functional processing and preparation space for early stage entrepreneurs and small businesses to scale and grow. Before we begin, we'd like to recognize that the land and waters of Sooke, where we live, work, play, are on the unceded territories of Pichidat, Skianu, and Sooke First Nations, and that these lands and waters are also connected to the broader homelands of the Wasanich and Lekwungen-speaking peoples. Our relationship to this place is tied to our work supporting businesses that rely on these lands and waters. We commit to honoring them by respecting nature, promoting regenerative practices, eating locally, consuming mindfully, and educating others. Our stewardship will include uplifting those doing sustainable work so that care for this land grows collectively. We hold gratitude for the Indigenous communities who have steered these shores, forests, and waters since time immemorial, and who continue to lead the way in protecting and teaching.
Do you think you could introduce your?
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Right. So leading up, okay. So we're recent MBA graduates from the University of Victoria. We had spent the past 2 years completing this master's program together while also working full-time jobs. Suraj works in the network and design branch of the BC Public Service. Sydney, who's calling in today virtually, is an independent sustainability consultant. And myself, I'm a regulatory consultant for the mining industry. This project came about as a term project in our final semester just over the summer, where we were to develop a viable business plan for a social enterprise. And so leading up to this final term, our class took a trip to the UK to tour and explore regenerative businesses that sought out to do good by putting people and planet first. Throughout this trip, a couple of things really made an impression on us. The creativity that came from exploration and adventure, the ability of food to bring people together, and how great ideas can arise when you have a collective group all aiming for the same mission. So upon returning from this trip, myself and Suraj, who both live in Sooke, wondered how we can develop a project around tourism as we started seeing buzz around Destination Canada's Wanafika corridor. Together with Sydney, We met with organizations and leaders in the tourism space to try to develop our idea, eventually connecting with Gail here. While talking to Gail, she brought up the idea of the food hub and cited Port Alberni's Dock Plus as a great example for something that would be great for Sooke to have. From there, we undertook more serious research on this idea, including operational logistics, a financially viable model, and more about the role that this can play in our local community and economy. So on the screen here, I've just got a map, as you know, of South Island circling the Juan de Fuca corridor. And as you know, the southeastern extent of this extends into the tip of Washington State. However, for this project, we're focusing on the Canadian extent of the corridor. All right, next slide. Okay, so on the screen here, I've got a couple of graphics from the BC Food Hub Network. This is a network of 12 different food hubs, all managed and overseen by the province of BC Ministry of Agriculture. On the right is obviously the logos of these food hubs, and on the left is a map showing their geographical location in BC. What I'd like to point out on this map here are two things. First is that we see here on the island where we are in Sooke, the closest food hub is number 6, formerly now Victoria Kitchen Connect. As of the past few months, this Kitchen Connect is no longer in operation. It's now closed, and so now our closest food hub that functions as a space for small businesses is going to be in Duncan and Port Alberni. So we did some researching on the food and beverage industry, and we found we've tabled the top challenges here for small and medium businesses that you see on the screen. To summarize, these challenges include barriers to entry and scaling. So that leads us to the pod. So now the pod will be based out of a 9,300 square foot former fish processing facility building here in Sooke. It's on Goodridge Road. The vision of the pod is to create a shared space for community that increases food security and drives local economic activity. The 5 pillars that we have for the pod are inclusivity, collaboration, innovation, food security, and regeneration. Again, this is a map of Sooke, and where I've on the upper right-hand corner of the screen there is just Goodridge Peninsula, where our subject location is. So here, I just wanted to point out the value propositions that we're going to bring to the table here. So we would be lowering the capital barriers to entry for entrepreneurs and small businesses. We would lower operational expenditures required for these businesses. We would have a portion of the pod that's a commercial kitchen open 24/7 for food businesses. We would leverage the status of a social enterprise and food hub to access provincial funding, grants, and private investments. And we would create, through the existence of the pod, we would create a shared network and collaboration hub for local food business. So here, I just wanted to point out that the alignment between this project and the district's OCP put out in September 2025. Section 4.6, Agriculture and Food Systems, we note that the objectives of the pod satisfies 5 out of 6 of the OCP's objectives. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sid.
Thanks, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So our planned market we're serving, we've divided into 2 areas, focusing first on community B2C, so business to community, of food security in the Juan de Fuca corridor, And we hope to support youth engagement and community members and tourists by bringing them into the pod to be able to share about the processes and how it's run. Our main customers after this is business to business really. So we have this broken down into 3 sections. One is processing facility, so food processing companies, our commercial kitchen, which is food preparation as well as cosmetics preparation companies, and then also offering a retail space for small scale makers. You'll see. So our different business streams here of really revenue streams is our processing facility, the commercial kitchen, and retail space for the pod. Those are our main areas. And going here, our potential customers, really we can draw from many different food systems within Sooke. And the main one really is Food Cheese Society. So this is a potential area that we are able to connect to determine further customers of the pod. Now for the processing facility space, we would be able, with our location identified, we'd be able to support 5 anchor tenants to lease the processing space, and the tenants would work with us to renovate the space to their standards and what they need for their own processing capability. And we'd be needing 3 to 5 year lease contracts from these tenants to be able to support the financial foundation of the pod. The tenants would have to have their own Canada Food Inspection Agency license. And again, this creates that recurring steady revenue for the pod to ensure financial viability. This is really recommended out of the Doc Plus in that anchor tenants are key to supporting a food hub. For our next area of business is the commercial kitchen. So we estimate to be able to support a maximum of 50 members per year with the operational capability of 24/7. The kitchen time and equipment will be able to be rented on an hourly basis. And we'll be able to use an online booking platform, the Food Corridor, which is also recommended by the Doc Plus. We've determined 3 membership options that I'll touch on briefly in the next slide. But first, the kitchen will have to have an Island Health sanitation plan, and then we'll also have members require their own food handling procedures and permits under Island Health to ensure we're following regulations. Now, the 3 membership options. So we've broken this down into 3 as per recommendations of the Doc Plus. I believe right now they have 4 membership options, but they said keeping it simple is going to be a lot more easy. So we've gone with 3. Here we have a full-time annual with a minimum of 30 hours per month used by a full-time annual vendor. And this also includes discount on workstation equipment, some storage shelf, and social media and marketing. And then part-time annual, the main difference is there's a minimum of 20 hours per month for those vendors, and then a 10% discount and a little bit less storage space. And then our workstation casual is really for people who are just starting out and needing a little bit of commercial kitchen time to experiment. So this would be prepaid 20 hours. And then our next area of revenue for the pod is the retail space. So this will be open to members and non-members that can rent shelf space to sell their goods. We'd focus first on non-refrigerated items just to keep things simple. And this will be run separate from the processing and commercial kitchen facilities. And we think that having this retail space will attract community members and tourists to the location of Sooke. Now, our business model and structure. We believe that starting out as a community contribution corporation is going to be the best bet for us, which is a for-profit enterprise, but mandated that 60% of the profits need to be reinvested back into the mandate of the organization. Once established, we believe that we can review an opportunity for the pod to be a cooperative. We determined that a cooperative is best for once we're established due to the high upfront costs of setting up a cooperative. And here you can just see the C3 organization sitting at the pod level and our different revenue streams. I'm going to pass it now to Suraj to take us through some finances.
Thank you, Sydney. So in this section, we'll be looking at some of the anticipated revenues, cost, and any potential barriers in terms of finance. And we've made various assumptions to a financial analysis, but while I won't go through all of the assumptions, one of the main assumptions that it's been modeled around Doc Plus, which you've seen a couple of times, just to help us understand the baseline estimates. So going into the numbers, as you've seen on the previous slide, the pod integrates the kitchen, processing, and the retail operations, and our revenue streams would be coming from rental of these services. An alternative revenue stream would also be some of the value-added services like packaging and shipping facilities that's available on the site as well. Once we understood the revenue stream, the next step was for us to understand the cost of delivery of these services. And the cost that Pod is directly responsible for is the initial investment of the project, which approximates to about 2.2 million, and the annual operating cost year over year, which is taken as a fixed cost. That would include, insurances and all of those other things like taxes and all those. The part of the cost that comes onto the tenants would be the lease cost, which, the anchor tenants would be paying the pod for, and also their production cost, which can be taken as a variable cost. So from a risk perspective, this helps us to de-risk our operations because this is going to be a linear. We're not, the pod itself is not getting a lot of revenue. It's going to be a step-by-step, and it's from the rental of these. And if you notice, there is a gap of about $60,000 between the yearly revenue and the cost of delivery. And that's basically because we've not taken the lease cost into consideration in this modeling, which you will see in the next slide. So this is the leasing scenario that we introduced. We have 4 options. On the left, you can see the total cash flow over the 10 years for all the 4 options. Option 1 is where, the tenants would take the mortgage that, we put in as the initial investment and pays it back to the pod as a leasing cost. The option 2 is with the 10% administrative premium on it. Option 3 and 4 is directly related to the annual growth rate of the industry itself. So from the internal rate of return that you can see on the right, we can see that option 2 is possibly the most viable, where we start generating just positive returns. It's not even 1%, but just positive. And what we found out from our modeling is that if we want to start earning up to at least an 8% of fixed returns over the years, we would need to minimize our investment by about 50%. So out of the 2.2 million that we are planning to invest, we would have to, approximately take about 1.1 from any outside funders or lending agency, which takes us into the next step of who could be our potential funders. And on this slide, you can see some of the potential funders that we have taken. And most of these funders aligns very well with the mission of pod itself on regenerative practices and food security itself. Some of them are government agencies, and there are also a lot of the community banks. So we've essentially looked at the financials of pod. We've started, planning to implement it. But what does that, provide us with? And that's where the community benefit comes into play, where some of the things that we noticed as to the limitations of the small and medium scale industry was, barrier to entry and scaling. And the pod helps us to vertically integrate some of the producers. So now farmers can, bring their produce and start processing and have it on a retail scale. So it helps them to scale much faster, and it also reduces the barriers of entry because now it's a shared cost structure where you don't have to take the blunt of the investment as well. So that's one of the main advantages of the community food hub. And in terms of the future scalability as well, we do know that the OCP has a lot of plans related to regeneration of the land itself, and this can be, taken into additional phases where you can start building on the land around it as well. With that, I will hand it off to Kevin to take us to the next step.
Okay, so thanks. That wraps up our presentation. Here we just wanted to share briefly our next steps from here after presenting to you, which is a big milestone for us in our conceptualization of this business plan. We'd be going into a phase of recruiting, while assessing out and then recruiting anchor tenants that we mentioned. This would help us in our refinement of the feasibility and our financial modeling as we go into seed funding rounds and begin to write grant applications, talk to investors and such. Thanks for your time, and we're open to any feedback.
Okay, thank you all three. The commercial kitchens have been discussed here in Sooke, the lack thereof for some time. So thank you for stepping up with this proposal. We do have a recommended motion here, which we'll get to once we have some questions from our committee. So opening the floor to questions. Fisher, yeah, please.
I maybe missed a little bit here. The building itself is a purchase. It's not a rental it's a purchase.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The building that we're interested in would be a
Would be
purchase. Yeah,
purchased,
after
right?
through talking with the gentleman that owns it.
So, yeah, it's a great, it's already set up, so it's
Yeah,
ideal.
yeah, it needs some renovations for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great site.
A lot of it's already been for manufacturing of food, so that helps.
Yeah, I think that's the $2.2 million that you saw as the initial investment, which is broken down as to 1.8 for the property itself and about 400,000 for upfitting the
building.
kitchen and renovations that's
And
needed.
who's the actual owner of the building? Would it be a collaboration like?
That is subject to the business plan, developing more and kind of where we want to take this project. As of now, it would be between the three of us. So it would be under the enterprise of the pod, actually, which would be shared ownership of us. But we're very open to understanding the appetite for the district to collaborate with us on this, as well as the province and other private investors.
Okay.
And one of the main reasons why we went for the community C3 was because we wanted to ensure that it's not a nonprofit. Like we don't want it to just be a nonprofit, because then you're kind of withholding the money or capital to reinvest. So we wanted that leverage to actually be able to reinvest back into the business, but preferably for the community. And I think there was we did come across this question where, is there a possibility for the port to actually develop into something else? And we think it can also start looking towards a cooperative structure, but starting it off as a cooperative structure would deviate our focus from, okay, how do we structure the cooperative now rather than the business itself? So that's one of the reasons why we've kept that for a phase 2 plan.
I think it's needed in our town, actually. Yeah. Would there be a space for, let's say, someone who's a caterer? Would there be a kitchen that a caterer could rent for events or?
Yeah. So that the caterer can choose between any of the plans as to how his business would be. So if he sees the frequency of him, that him or her, or anybody, to that person to actually be, what's the frequency that I use this on, and what would be the best membership experience for this? So, and on our financial analysis, though, one of the things I want to highlight is if you look at the percentage revenue from commercial kitchens, from what we found at the Doc Plus, it was not too much based on the overall revenue. But we still wanted it as a piece, because what we've seen from the local area is a lot more into how can we cook on what we've processed. And, this is like I think one of the slides also mentioned the cosmetic industry, which has been an ongoing thing as well.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of manufacturing of local cosmetics. Yeah. I think it's
Okay, thank you, Gwen. Catherine?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I like the model. I think I had a couple of questions and one comment. The $291,509 in anticipated revenue, that's at full capacity, full rental space maximized?
Yeah, so that is at the full capacity, but we've been very conservative with it. So I would say even the growth rate that we've taken is almost half of what was predicted. So it's a very conservative number, and which is, and like I said, it was based on the assumptions of what Doc Plus had been able to do in the past few years of operation. So it does have a bit of variable. We would need to go into more of a feasibility study as to how it relates to the particular demographics of Fuka corridor, right? So I think you can take that with probably a 10 to 15% of variability.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my other question. Has there been a feasibility study or a survey of the local market to see if there is desire for this, including First Nations involvement? And just as a comment, I'm wondering if you've considered launching this as a pilot project, because there are some kitchens in Sooke that are not being used to full capacity. Stickleback being one of them. They're closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays, for example. So if there's an opportunity to maximize those spaces, pay rent to them as a pilot to see if there is appetite here in Sooke for a larger facility, that might be something to consider.
Yeah, that pilot idea is a really good and low cost to testing the business model for sure. But in terms of your other comments, they're serving the community. We have been out at local farmers markets and night markets, and we hear time and time again that there's indeed a need for this. And in fact, just driving around, we see businesses using the museum's kitchen after hours. I think there's a new Lebanese spot in town, and I know there's a new Thai spot open in town. We think there's definitely value in the pod as a hub itself to being this one building that serves as a community kind of glue and providing we would be providing subsidized training there as well, food safety training, food safe training, entry level marketing. How do you social media market yourself, right? How do you package things? How do you what are basic regulatory things that a food business has to go through, right? So we think there's value in having such concentrated services in one spot. And for your comment on First Nations cooperation, we do very much so want to collaborate with the Sauk Nation on this, and we know there's an example in the North Island by Port Hardy, Port McNeil. Quagooth First Nation has just received a $1 million grant over the summer for a food hub that empowers cultural sovereignty of food, and we think that's a fantastic thing that we'd like to explore here as well. But we didn't want to come to them without first coming to you, and secondly with a half-baked plan, right? So we wanted to more formally come to them with something for collaboration.
I think I also want to add, I think one of the reasons why we're sitting here today is because we see the district as a very strong collaborator to bring some of these businesses. We've been trying to do our best in trying to go to, connect with the farmers market and even the First Nations, the Sooke First Nation. But we're hoping that the district can kind of be the collaborator to bring all of these businesses together and see how we can go together as a very viable plan.
Okay, further questions or comments at this point? Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you much to the chair, to our guests. Thank you for that. I'm really happy to see somebody sees the initiative. I've seen a lot of people wringing their hands in this community over the last number of years to get something like this off the ground. You have some hurdles ahead of you, but you have a plan, and it's quite a comprehensive, good plan, as I can see. I know it's in a beginning stages. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you can accomplish with this. I was really quite taken aback by this building coming available. I know 2.2 million sounds like a lot, but in the scheme of things today, it's not in a business. But to me, it looks like it's the perfect place. It's a building that can be repurposed almost, up and running in a matter of months. I would encourage you to, I know sometimes it can be difficult, but do contact the First Nations, because I know they're talking with Cooper's Cove about processing some of their seafood. And I'm not so sure that would be enough facility. This could be just perfect for them as well. So I just wanted to encourage you, and I wanted to encourage those people in Sooke that might take an interest in this to step forward and have a look and see if it can generate something. Because if we can get some of these home-based businesses out of Sooke and they all employ 1 or 2 people, it really helps. So thank you again for that presentation, and I'm excited to hear where you go from here.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Thanks very much. Been looking forward to this a lot. I have a couple of questions. The big one is actually what you've already mentioned a little bit of how you'd like the district to be able to help. Do you see that in terms of a partnership where the district can be working with you on grant applications of various sorts? What's the nature of how can we best help? What are you looking for? If you could expand on that a little bit.
For sure. I think the awareness now it's a great first step for just the conceptual buy-in. Secondly, it's the streamlining of necessary permitting and yeah, anything required for retrofitting, upgrading, and altering functions of the facility. And yeah, just to explore investment opportunities to support in that upfront $2.2 million capital that we've got. Right now, that's our largest barrier to entry for this. So yeah.
Okay. You mentioned a feasibility study. I'm assuming that you need resources for a feasibility study. When would that be going forward? How do you see that playing out?
So I know through our research of food hubs back in 2019, the Ministry of Agriculture, the idea of food hubs was very up and coming then, and they were putting out or rather giving out grants for feasibility studies into food hubs. I believe that's no longer the pot is no longer available. And the feasibility study that we showed here is very high level. It's very, very high level. And what we do want to do is a more in-depth one. So yeah, do you have ideas on that one?
Yeah, I think in terms of the feasibility studies as well, we haven't incorporated the climate resilience plan on how that works. So I think it's going to be a lot more of expertise that's needed. We all are fresh graduates. We do have work experience, but not related to, like, in terms of my experience, it's more technology on how to deliver that for the public service. So I think it's more of expertise that we look towards the district for. And in terms of navigating as to what sort of ownership does the district want to take in this as well. Like I said, it's for us, it's more of a community development that we're looking for rather than the profit mechanism of this. So I think that's another thing where, do we need to take a relook at the ownership structure? How does the what part of it does the district want to play into this, or do you want to keep it more of a separate entity and have nothing to do with it? The expertise and the ability to collaborate, like our first stop after this was going to the First Nation communities and trying to see what sort of things. We do know that the Sooke Nation was looking for a processing facility for their and looking to buy this as a whole. But at that point, I think it was 2021, 2022, around that time. But they didn't want to take on that, but so much of an investment in dire economic times. So that was one of the reasons they went behind on it. So to your question as to can they be one of the anchor tenants, we absolutely think so. We think we can provide, especially this being a fish processing facility as before, a seafood processing facility. So I think there's a lot of things that can, and I think it's because we have these ideas, but we haven't collaborated with them. We don't know. It's more of putting all those assumptions to rest and seeing what can actually be viable. So I think out of all of these things, I think what we're looking in terms of the district is how does the district see this boosting the economy of Sooke itself, and can this tie into any of the tourism plans that the district has? How do we attract the community to come into that space and start co-creation within that? Because I think that's the ultimate aim. So it's more of collaboration and more of how do we progress forward, right? Like in terms of.
I'd like to follow up. Really.
Yeah.
I still don't quite have a clear, okay. What I see here is that we need a feasibility study in order for this type of thing to move forward in terms of identifying anchor tenants, nailing down the financing, potentially funding opportunities, all the rest of that stuff. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area. And I think I think you've made it clear that you would want to be bringing outside experts and to do some of those pieces because that's what would be needed. So what I'm really asking, I guess, is what's the next step in term? It feels like the feasibility study is a critical next step. What's the next step to get to a feasibility study?
Can I jump in? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Our next step for this is to determine who could the anchor tenants be. Because without anchor tenants, we don't actually have a feasible model. They're the reoccurring revenue that the pod would need to ensure stability, which is something that was heavily recommended by the Doc Plus. So once we're able to talk to get connected with your guys' first recommendation of the food network within Sooke to talk to individuals and businesses and see who would potential anchor tenants be, and we're able to get a short list of those anchor tenants, then we're able to actually dive into more of a feasibility study of what are going to be the costs associated with acquiring this, the debt costs, how much investment do we fully need? Like we have our estimates, but we could be a bit off on that as well. So that would be our first step, is the anchor tenants and having those discussions. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Sort of.
I can add one bit to that, just for context. Thanks, Sydney. That really jogged my memory. So the reason why anchor tenants is the next steps for our feasibility study is because this model is predicated on we do not, or the pod does not dictate what the space is going to look like. Our business models will portion out the real estate of this facility, but the anchor tenants will sign a 3 to 5 year lease and tell us how they want to use that space. So if we find these anchor tenants, they tell us, oh, we're going to need like a full range, we're going to need like this and that equipment. That then informs what goes into the feasibility modeling, and then that informs the permits that we need, and which further refines that feasibility. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to move us forward now. We're 45 minutes into the meeting. Thank you very much for this presentation. I'd like to put the motion on the floor that the Community Economic Development Committee recommend that Council refer the pod project to the Sooke Region Food Systems Network for discussion and exploration, and that comments or recommendations from the network be reported back to the Community Economic Development Committee at a future meeting. So seconded by Catherine. And I'll just quickly motivate on that. You're at this high level, right, at this moment, and there's a lot of expertise in this community. Councillor St. Pierre is our appointee to the Food Systems Network, and we look forward to hearing back its recommendations back to this committee, and then we can move this forward as we see fit. I had a few, I would imagine your anchor tenants, prospects improve with the closure of the Kitchen Connect in Victoria. I have a question. Can you explain why that facility failed, or is, okay? Yeah. You were, okay. Yeah, I would like to, as chair, welcome public comment here. Yes, please do. Yeah, could you come up to the mic? Come over to this mic over here.
You can.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, can everybody hear me? Great. So I was the operations manager and project coordinator for Kitchen Connect. It was a great model, not dissimilar to what has been spoken to here today. They ultimately closed as a commissary kitchen. So they operated inside the mustard seed food security distribution warehouse, which is a huge space. And inside that warehouse was obviously food rescue. There was a commercial kitchen there that the mustard seed would produce meals for their various operations. And then there was another sort of little side kitchen. And that's where Flourish School Meal Society operated out of. And when they started operating, they were producing about 300 meals a day for School District 62, about 3.5 years ago. And now they're between 1,200 and 1,500 meals per day. So they've expanded beyond the space that they were in. And because they rely so heavily on the contribution of rescued food to keep their costs down, it became very important for them to stay in that warehouse space. And it just made sense for them to move into the Kitchen Connect entire area. And they ended up coming in and taking over the lease and moving into that space. So great news for Flourish. They're feeding a lot more of our kids, but unfortunate for Kitchen Connect. It was also a little bit challenging for Kitchen Connect to operate the way that it wanted to in that space, because not only was Kitchen Connect a shared space, but it was sharing the entire warehouse with multiple other groups. So it was very, very busy. There wasn't great access. The parking wasn't great. And of course, a lot of rules about functioning inside a warehouse. So it made it particularly challenging for some of the tenants to function effectively in there, and storage was limited, which should be part of your planning. So it just made sense for that transition to happen. So that's ultimately why they closed. It wasn't a result of a faulty business model or viability or sustainability or anything like that. It just made sense more logistically. So, okay, you're welcome.
You're on the, you're part of the food system network, are you not?
I am, and I'm also on the board of Food
Okay,
Yeah.
well, perfect.
Yeah.
So you will be hearing more from Kira if you haven't already. And
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
All right, and my final note was, in terms of funding, I noted the federal government has a small food processor scale-up program, but that's not for startups, is it? It's for expanding. So I think that there is funding at various levels that that might be possible. Okay, so having shred the procedure process, I'll go to our seconder. Okay, so thank you for being here. All in favor? Yes, okay. Very much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, we're up to item 6.2, the recognition, proclamation, and adornment policy and its 2026 schedule.
Thank you. So this report brings forward the new recognition, proclamation, and adornment policy and the proposed 2026 schedule of recognized activities. The policy replaces the 2029 proclamation policy and brings all recognition activities, including proclamations, lighting, and adornment, under one framework. It's designed to ensure a consistent, equitable, and resource-aligned approach to how the district honors important causes. Staff are seeking a committee recommendation that council adopts the new policy and approve the 2026 schedule as determined by the committee. While staff have included a recommended schedule based on current practices, community feedback, and available resources, I'll turn it over to the chair for committee discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at this point, Catherine?
Thank you. I read the updated plan and I'm in agreement with it with a couple of corrections. National Indigenous Peoples Day, June 21st. I would recommend not using orange flags for that. Orange flags are reserved for memorializing residential school survivors on September 30th. So I recommend using red, black, white, and yellow flags, which represent the medicine wheel. Secondly, Red Dress Day. That date is actually May the 5th, and I would recommend using red flags for that day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments further? Councillor St. Pierre?
The actual bylaw looks fine. So this is more with regards to the general topic. I was curious because of the costs attendant to actually doing things like the lighting. I understand that we're not ready to do that on this building because we're looking at renovations on this building before we actually do lighting. But I was curious about whether or not we looked at spreading the news or trying to partner with, for example, School District 62, the library, Chamber of Commerce, Sea Park, and so on and so forth, in order to share all these dates. And if they have their own lighting systems, or encouraging businesses either through incentives or supports. So if we had a way of actually spreading the costs, but also just working with various partners in the community to do this work, it would be, quite frankly, probably less expensive and have a larger impact. So I was curious if we might look at that to some degree, or if it has been already.
Christina, any comment?
If it was the desire of council, we could certainly do a referral that we receive. Should the district proclaim or do some lighting, we can certainly share that information and leave those entities to do as their resources. We can't certainly speak to their resources, but just to at least share the information on what we are doing. Absolutely. No, thank you for that.
Sharing the dates and the details and making sure everybody's on the same page would be good. And the more programmable lights we have, the cheaper it gets to actually potentially do festive lighting, or whoever knows.
And
yes.
sorry, just if I may just add to that, I think that that's the one of the key components of the capacity and limited capacity that staff has as well, is that we can, once the schedule is adopted, we can actually advertise that on our district website and refer the agencies to that in a quite a efficient means. So it's not burdensome on resources and sharing and opening those conversations, but that we streamline the process to say, this is the decision, this is our policy, here's what you can expect, how we're recognizing, why we're recognizing XYZ events on our annual basis. So that's something that could emerge once we have an updated policy. Of course, at present, we do not have a policy that captures that adornment piece, and that's one of the gaps we're looking to close.
Perfect. That's it.
All right. Yeah, thank you for this policy. It, as you state, it supports a coordinated and predictable workflow, reduces last-minute operational demands, and ensures recognition is carried out within the district's capacity. Because as we saw in an earlier report, there's an awful lot of hours go into the setup and takedown of these various, but it's critical also to be recognizing these key days throughout the year. I was curious about that programmable outdoor lighting system as well at Evergreen Mall. So you noted that the municipal hall's programmable lighting one day in the future would cost $20,000. Is this a $20,000 expense as well?
It is not. I don't have those exact numbers, although I should, so I do apologize for that. But it was a nominal cost and actually a net favorable on the district's budget compared to the time that we were spending putting up the lights. So that's why that decision was made within the operational impact of the district's budget this year.
In terms of Mrs. Luer's comment earlier about DIY activities by the business community, I believe Gwen, you might speak to this with Noel night coming up.
We talked about that when we knew there was no budget downtown, and how our businesses could take a little more responsibility to jazz things up and put put up and take down. I think it can make a big impact. So we're hoping we've got letters out. Yeah.
And of course, I think you need to focus on your business storefronts, because I'm not sure the district would be thrilled if, or perhaps not, the art bombers get busy again and,
Yeah.
yeah. Any comments from staff on citizens taking decorations into their own hands and in public spaces? CAO Gray.
Through the chair, I mean, I think it gets complicated when there is private members of the community doing something in public spaces and insurance and liability, and in the vein of it's all fine till it's not. We prefer to not participate or actively support, I guess, those public events like that without more information. And we can provide some bit more information of any other risks, I know.
Gwen, one more.
Is there an example? Am I missing something way down on Goodmere Road that, last year, did something happen that?
No, I don't
Oh,
think so.
no.
I'm just thinking ahead.
No, we're
talking
talking
I'm
about our
responding to
businesses
Mrs.
being
Lure.
jazz, not.
Yeah, no, for the
Okay.
chair, I know that like, for example, the Whip and Spit tree
Oh,
that got decorated by members of the community. It wasn't necessarily a district sponsored event in some regard, but there was a risk and a liability, these events happening after hours and also severely, we've heard damage the tree now eventually. And so that's just one more kind of recent example of an initiative.
Have we stopped that Christmas tree on Whiffen Smith?
I believe so. I don't want to announce that, but I believe it didn't occur last year.
And Christina?
Perhaps I can extend to on the swag item that was mentioned specifically during a public comment period as well. So some of these really well-intended events that are volunteer driven at the onset then may be handed off to staff capacity. And sometimes that's not necessarily the most optimal use of tax dollars as well on the details with the swag. So I know it wasn't only volunteer driven, it also tagged into staff capacity and well-intended. Sometimes if we don't look at the long-term impacts of some of these, it can present other challenges down the road. So we're just cognizant of that.
Okay, thank you. So who would like, Councillor Beddoes?
Through the chair, to staff, there was two changes mentioned by, one of our members here, a date and, so when we have the motion on the floor, we have, adopt, as presented. So it would be as amended. Are you going to make those amendments, or do you need to vote for us to make those amendments?
Thank you, through the chair. So we do have the resolution on the screen. It indicates recommend insert event. So we can insert those events as they were, should that be the desire of the committee, as they were, those changes were provided to us, and that would be the running list for the events for 2026.
Okay.
And that would be
As long as it's
preferred.
captured, that's all.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay, who would like to make this motion? Councillor St. Pierre. You can read it into the record.
I can do that. That the Community Economic Development Committee recommend to Council that Council rescind proclamations policy number 1.6209, that Council adopt the District of Sooke recognition proclamation and adornment policy as presented, and that Council direct staff to conduct recognition adornment for the following events in 2026. And I believe we're looking at as outlined in the report and as amended, which is stated right here. All right.
Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All right, any further comment or discussion?
Thank you for your work.
Okay. Okay, 6.3, the South Island Prosperity Project. Okay, this is the recent Igniting Momentum report that all of you have had an opportunity to look at in your agendas. It's worth noting that SIP, the South Island Prosperity Project, will be coming to council with a presentation on this subject. However, we have an opportunity today to discuss this, and I'd like to turn to Councillor St. Pierre, who is council's appointee to SIP. And I know you were at an online session last week, so would you like to share some thoughts?
So it's a long document, 125 pages. Don't imagine everyone's necessarily looks through the whole thing. Having said that, What I was impressed with was the way that the material was organized. So we're looking at some critical areas where, unless as a region, and I think that the focus of the document, not the focus, but one of the big things that came out of it was really the idea that regional collaboration is required. Mostly because in terms of where we obtain goods and services and where we have our jobs, it's on a regional basis. Sooke is not an island, but Chosen is not an island. None of us are an island. So everything is quite regionalized. And as such, there's a lot of focus on that piece. But what I also found interesting was a focus on commercial district revitalization specifically, because that's a lot of what we've been looking at doing. So along with the idea of maintaining an awareness of the regional context and the need for a strong regional economy to actually provide jobs and services throughout the region, there's also a strong emphasis on essentially what we can do to basically protect our downtowns. And what they've done is they've actually taken their various risks, which are also opportunities, the things that we must do if we don't want to end up with a worse economy. And they've looked at what the federal government, the provincial governments, and local governments and local champions can do. And so it's very clear within the document, for example, what the Chamber of Commerce can do and what any local champions and players can do. It's also very clear through the document what the district can do. As such, there's a place there, I think, for us to see what we want to do with the document. This could certainly feed into whatever, or should feed into whatever economic strategy, economic strategy we want to utilize in Sooke, because it really pinpoints the role of the district in terms of where we can actually do things. The big ones really seem to be around things like, downtown revitalization, housing affordability is always going to be the biggest issue right now. The one thing that surprised me in the document was that there wasn't a great deal of emphasis on transportation. Because clearly, if we're looking at a regional model where people are traveling all over the place, we know in Sooke that with Route 14 the way it is, there's an issue in terms of transportation. So that wasn't necessarily emphasized, and it wasn't one of the 8 or so big risks. I would actually suggest that's a gap in the document, but that's my observation. If anybody has specific questions about the document or what I've learned about it, I'm more than willing to take questions. And I did attend the presentation, and I looked through the document pretty carefully.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Further comments, questions? Ms. Scott?
Yes, through Chair. Tony, do you think it would be something we could ask of SIP if they could run that entire report through AI note taker, synthesize it right down to a very short report that people can get their heads wrapped around? Because I find with all these very, very lengthy reports that we're asking our committees to read, you can't expect them to get through all of it. So of late, the committees that I've been involved in are doing this. And it makes a huge difference for the committee members to wrap their heads around what's going on, what they have to focus on. I think if we were to ask Aaron and Dallas if that was possible, that might be.
I think it's an excellent suggestion. I'm always in favor of brevity and clarity in terms of this sort of thing. I don't know if this needs, I think that putting it through this body would not necessarily be the way to go. Is that something that can be done at staff level? Because from here, we would have to put a recommendation through to council.
Oh,
And then the recommendation from council would have to go to SIP and so on and so forth. Whereas if we actually would like to see maybe that document when SIP is presenting to council shortly, which I think would be grand, it might be easier to do that at a staff level.
okay.
Just
That's a good idea.
because otherwise I think it's just going to take way too long and not necessarily get the result we want, the time we want.
I'm in favor of any shortcuts.
Me too.
Well, there's always the executive summary, right? The first 3 pages of this document tells you all you need to know, and then you can dive in as you wish. So I'm wary of AI in any context, but I do find the search results are anyway. It's a fascinating conundrum. Yes, you may, of course.
if you're going to be in communication with Aaron and Dallas, it might also be nice to get a summary specifically of the roles of local government. Just bring it all together. Because of course, it's all broken up kind of the same way our OCP is into various sections that don't actually bring everything that's relevant to local government to one particular section. But for a presentation to local government, I think local government and champions would make a lot of sense. And if that was actually summarized by whatever mechanism, I think that would make their presentation even more impactful.
All right. I'll just note, yeah, it was fascinating to read this report. It's identified these 7 areas, and as Tony says, there are recommendations to local governments. And being a half full kind of guy, I've looked at these 7 sets of recommendations, which are given individual pages within the document. And, you know, starting with housing and affordability solutions, partnerships they're recommending for integrated housing projects. So on Lot A, we have an urgent primary care center in combination with BC Builds. And I forget the number, 80 units of market housing. It's interesting, there's the open for business policies are recommended, and they define this as a fair commercial to residential ratio of taxation at a mill rate of 3.7 to 1. And as Rose confirmed today, our rate is 3.79. So we are in fact, by SIP's definition, open for business here. Yes. Yes, okay. There's another workforce preparedness. There's a call for hire highly qualified planning and development staff who can accelerate implementation and approvals. And I think our CAO has, and her hiring team has done a great job with the current planning department. Highly qualified, exceptional people. Invest in amenities, so the MRDT funds will allow that to begin to happen. Our micro grants and the tactical plan for year 1. The business walk is recommended under entrepreneurial culture, and we've hit 25, I think, businesses over the last 2 weeks. And finally, resilience against external shocks is the 7th area, and they're talking about new ownership models. So thanks to Gail's work with WorkLink and others in the chamber, we have the business services cooperative upcoming for launch. And we'll be hearing about that shortly. So we can tick a bunch of, and we're committed here at the district in the strat plan and in the hiring of Gail Scott to community economic development, absolutely. But those are the upsides. So I'm sure there's gaps. We'll identify those at council level. And I don't know if we have a recommendation to council other than the fact that we've received it for information. Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on something you just mentioned. One of the themes that did occur regularly was actually support for cooperatives, either in a housing, in a co-housing sense, in terms of co-housing model, which obviously can provide affordability components, but also, and this was something that was a little bit terrifying, a little bit of a gap, definitely, but with a large number of businesses where people are hoping to retire, and they don't necessarily have a legacy plan. And some of these are critical services in the community. And so there was a strong emphasis on what can we do so that, kind of like what happened with the stick in the mud and Cafe Bozino, we can actually not lose landmark needed services in our community, but instead just have the community members essentially either through worker co-ops or member co-ops or whatever it might look like, make sure those businesses keep on going. At this point in time, I'm well aware that the co-op model is not actually supported very well. So for example, it takes sometimes upward of 6 months to get a GST number, whereas a regular corporate structure, you could actually do it online in 12 hours or something. So we know that there's room for the federal government, the provincial government, and other bodies and ourselves who actually make the rules surrounding this stuff to actually make it far easier for communities to actually take over businesses and make sure they don't go away. especially in, remote areas and so on and so forth. I mean, what do you do when a critical service just is gone? So I wanted to mention that because I thought it was interesting and critically important. And also given that we've got Kifigosing as a good example of that happening. And of course, services being now offered for businesses through another co-op. And Sooke is actually a hub of co-housing, a recognized hub of co-housing. So we're in a good place to actually make some movement in that direction.
So I'd just like to move that the committee receive this report for information. So seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, and all in favor of that? Approved, carried is the right word. I should note that Member Scott Taylor sent his regrets today, as did Mayor Tate. And please ensure that's in the minutes. Thank you. And now we're moving on to the all-world Gail Scott's report, because she is such a, we're going to have her report as a standing item on the agendas going forward. And the little mix up in terms of getting a printed report into the agenda. But are you in a position to share your notes with us after the fact?
Verbally.
Verbally, you will
right.
do so today.
Anybody who wishes to have a hard copy, I will be pleased to send you what I got.
Well, I think we'd all love that. Thank you. Okay, so away you go.
Okay, thank you very much. I do apologize for the mix-up. I was at a conference and ill, etc., but we're here and you're getting the verbal version of my report. So I've broken it down into new projects, existing projects, etc. So for our new projects initiative this past month was business walks, which Chair Bateman has already referred to. We did a team of small 3 people, Deb Shank from the Chamber of Commerce. We also had Karen Stone, and she is I believe, executive director. Is she on the chamber? Yep. And myself, the 3 of us did a walk on October 21st. We visited 15 businesses that day. Basically, the 3 questions are asked, and they're, how is business? Have you got any challenges or issues you want to share with us? And I can't remember what the 3rd one was, but Deb will be doing a roll-up report, and that report will be made available. It is the Chamber's intention to do a second business walk, even though Small Business Month Canada is over officially at October 31st. But
we actually did a second walk, Deb and I, on Thursday.
On Thursday, thank you for that. And how many businesses?
We hit 10, I think.
Oh, that's good. The
Yes.
25.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very good. The consensus is that business is good. And the consensus is there's not that many issues. And of the issues that did get raised the day I was on the walk was mostly focused around the homelessness and some of the issues that are caused by that. Some of them have said that their property owner managers are addressing those issues by putting in extra security cameras, fencing, etc. But without question, that was the #1 concern that came up. The only other concern that I can definitely speak to was a couple of our businesses said, why is it that so many duplicate type businesses exist in Sooke? An example would be maybe the fitness and wellness. And why are so many business licenses granted to businesses that already exist, So it does create a lot of competition in a small market. That's the only other comment that came up. My attitude has always been more competition, better business. However, that's not everybody's opinion. So I'll leave it at that.
And I'm not sure the district has the right to
They don't.
pick and choose.
No, they don't.
No.
My example was in Cranbrook. We had 55 donut shops within 3 blocks on the highway. And they were blaming City Hall for giving out those business licenses. Well, it's not up to City Hall. It's up to them to do their homework.
Here it's pizza and nail salons. Those, there are a number of those. Can I just, towing services. Oh, there's 2 now. Yeah, 3, okay. Can I just share a few of my takeaways from the business walk? So homeless issues definitely were mentioned by several people. Parking was mentioned a number of times, given the town center issues. One individual said no. People are actually managing okay on days when we don't have a big event at the community hall or Legion, for example. So maybe we don't need a parking garage in downtown Sooke. But we definitely need something for growth over time was the comment. Lease rates came up a number of times. It particularly in buildings that are posed for future development. One situation, their lease doubled. New ownership came in, the lease doubled, and they will only allow month to month for this particular business. Yeah, it's quite shocking. Anyway, the number of notes here, which I shouldn't share, but well, another business, their lease is up 30%. The new commercial property in Sooke, it's renting out at about $45 per square foot, which is pretty high, right? Given many in town are paying half that. And there's a definite need, it was discussed a few times, for like, can there be a district-owned property of some kind with a hive of small business spaces, and that definitely came up. Tony?
I should point out that the SIP document also pointed to that sort of thing as a critical problem across the South Island. And one of the solutions that they were presenting was actually to have basically non-market, essentially commercial space. So in the same way that you actually have affordable housing for people, you need affordable rentals for businesses. And if it's straight up left to the market, then you end up with situations again where perfectly viable businesses, new ownership, and bam, all of a sudden your operating costs have doubled. And it doesn't allow businesses to necessarily do well or thrive or plan for the future. So that was one of the other things that came out very strongly in the document.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's a lot about supply and demand. Once we allow these other developments that are going to have rental space, there's more competition. It's the same with housing. I went through a full appraisal program when I started to rent out spaces at our building, and talk to friends. And of course I get to see what the area does, but I think the new buildings going in know that there's so many businesses waiting for a place to rent. So when the other mall opens and these 40,000 square foot of commercial space or whatever, it's going to make a big difference. I think the price, they're going to have to drive it down because nobody can afford to run a business at $43 a square foot. But there's nothing a district can do about that either, right? Is there? I don't know the legality.
Because
so
certainly it's the
I-
locally owned businesses that can't afford those, right? The chains, of course, can, and then we lose character and distinction here.
Well, we do have a policy in the district, any new buildings, that the ground floors are to be commercial. And it was just with that, when I understand fully what you're saying and the market. So the idea is that we've got this new builds right now that are coming online, and they're going to have more facilities for people to rent. Now, they're going to be pretty pricey because they're new buildings, but as soon as you do that, then some of the other ones are going to have to drop their prices, because right now it's they have a capture in the market. You look around for anybody renting anything, and some of these buildings to me should be torn down. but they rent them out at an exorbitant price. Can't get anything done on them or repair. So, I mean, I know that firsthand by some people. So, the district has been, promoting that, insisting that those ground floors be commercial space and not, rentals for housing. So, it just takes time. So,
No, I'm actually sorry about that. I miss.
No, I'm
Maybe
bang on with you.
misunderstood is that the district can't tell a landlord what they can charge, but allowing these developments is definitely helping. That's the where, but you can't say, no, just like you can't open a pizza store because we already have 5. That's up to the business to do their studies and make those choices. And competition's healthy.
Okay, that's a
Harry-
subject for another meeting. I think maybe we need, how do we get a really robust roundtable on this very subject? We'll see.
Okay, I'm carrying on.
Bars are my specialty.
Digress any further. Okay, my next report is on Royal Roads University 2025 Learning Partnership Project. In addition to what we just had presented by you, Vic, we have this wonderful opportunity in which we also partner with Royal Roads University. Sometimes it's with MBA students, sometimes it's just with post-secondary business and mid students. But we do pay into the program on an annual basis, but it's nominal compared to what we get at the end. When you get a business case from these students, and they're really good business cases, or they do the research that we didn't have the time or capacity to do, it's invaluable. So coming up, starting on, I think it's Wednesday or Thursday this week, the Royal Roads University Langford Campus MBA 2025 cohort program and the district of Sooke, CED, being myself, I guess, and some of our committee members here, will be launching a new student learning project in November. For approximately 6 weeks, and it will end by mid-December. The project will focus on accessible and viable shuttle transit for Sooke's inner core. We know it's an issue. We know we have BC Transit, and they've got regular routes coming in and out of Sooke to Victoria, etc. But our immediate downtown commercial core is not convenient. Too many cars, not enough parking, or perhaps we don't need that parking. Perhaps what we need is a shuttle service. So they're going to be looking at alternate modes of transportation and making preparing a business case to present to council. So it's a very quick turnaround. Most of these projects are, but they'll be bringing a bus right to Sooke. And I've arranged to have several people from the district participate on that bus tour, as well as some representatives from other not-for-profit organizations such as Searchin and the chamber, etc. will all be getting on that bus so that there can be an open dialogue between what we need and the students hearing and taking that information back. So I'll be looking forward to having that presentation sometime they'll finish the project sometime in around mid-December. And likelihood, they'll be asking for an opportunity to present to council sometime in the new year. Let me see. Now, projects in progress. The Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, or better yet known as REDIF. For those who don't know, this is the very first time that the District of Sooke has become eligible to make application. We've always been told, no, we can't, because we are one of the 13 CRD municipalities, which mean we're urban. Through the last couple of years, several letters have gone back and forth between the district and the province. And I never miss a moment at any conference to not stand up and bring this to their attention, that we are not urban, we are rural. And somehow the listening ears heard. And so they created a brand new category within this funding program, and it was called Category 3. What it does is look at some of these smaller communities that are outside of the major urban core. And instead of calculating the number of miles from Sooke to Victoria and say, oh, you're urban, they now calculate the time it takes and if there were an accident on the road. And so therefore, they've decided that some of our rural communities in British Columbia do qualify for going under this program. So when they announced that to me in July, I knew the program intake was going to be announced. Sitting down with Chris Marshall, I think everybody's understanding within Sooke that the top priority within the OCP is to carry out a land use an employment land use strategy. It's been on the books for years. We've not been able to get the money to do it, but we just submitted on October 31st through the Planning and Development Department of Sooke. Thanks to our brand new senior planner, Kyle, and I'm mix up, Kyle. He diligently worked hard in putting it all together with a lot of other support coming from various members. And he submitted on October 31st. Support letters are still coming in. He did submit it with 3 support letters, one from the chamber, one from WorkLink, Employment Society, and one from Searchin. But today, opening my emails, are 4 more. SIP and a number of school district, etc. So those are going to be submitted because you can submit support letters after the fact. But you, okay. We stand a good chance. We did meet with the province prior to submission. We did ask all the questions we needed to ask. They did say the project checks off all the boxes of what would be qualifying and are eligible. They also stated that, where was it going with this? To submit under the development stream, that would be the most likely one. They did advise us, it's always overprescribed. It's going to be heavily competitive. But I think because they've created this brand new category, there'll be some consideration given to the new category. So hopefully we will be successful. We did, I think it's an 80-20 split. So 80% would come from the province. And we were going after 100 grand is my understanding. So we'll probably have to come up with about 25,000-30,000. But I haven't read it. I just got back to work today, so I'm sorry. But that's a good initiative for us to go after and a high priority. So hopefully, and this topic, employment land use strategy, was top of mind at the VIA conference all last week. So it is the appropriate thing to be doing. In addition to that, let me see. So active high priority projects that are currently in progress are the MRDT implementation process. And I think you're aware that we did a notice of direct intent to direct award. It was challenged. So we're at a point in discussion with senior staffing, whether we take it in-house and manage it ourselves. One of the things I did state I would do following that was to check to see with Destination BC what exactly would be required of the district should we take it in-house in our first year, 2026? Nothing. because when we submitted in July of this year, it included a 5-year plan, and within that 5-year plan was a 1-year tactical plan. And it's the 1-year tactical plan that all the other communities who've been collected for a long time are now required to implement and send to the province. We've already done it. So they said, no, we've got your tactical plan. We have approved your tactical plan. And I said, what reporting do we actually have to do in 2026? None. You'll have to do it in 2027. So this is beautiful. What it does is put us in a position in which we can start collecting this month. And at the end of 2026, we will then prepare ourselves for reporting out for our first year in 2027. So I see no reason why we cannot manage it in-house. I've consulted with a couple of agencies, tourism management agencies, and they see no reason. There's several communities around the island that take it in-house and manage it just fine. It will give us 1 year so that we can learn and just see how much work is involved. And then we'll be able to determine, do we need to carve some of it off to outside agencies to carry out some of the work? Or can we handle it inside? We'll be able to make those decisions after we work through this year. So I'm happy with the process.
Gail, so the direct award to Forever Strategies, is that going ahead for the administration? No, you're going to pause a year.
I pulled everything off of
Okay.
BC bid. And so I just informed 4BI. Thank you very much for all the work, but we are considering managing it ourselves the first year for sure. And they are 100% supportive of that. Okay, so that does the MRDT. Oh, one thing I did want to mention is that due to the government employee strike, there is going to be some delay in when to expect our first check. And they said it's just a matter of getting people back to work, getting caught up on some work that's behind. But we were initially expecting to see our first check the first quarter of 2026. That would also include November, December 2025. But it may have to go into the beginning of the second quarter. But either way, we know the money is going to be coming. And for those that may have the question, who collects this money? Because I get asked that all the time. And I did verify that with Destination BC. It is the province's responsibility, and they have set up a system in which they reach out to every single accommodator, whether it be short-term, rental accommodators, hotels, whatever, and they collect it. It goes to the province, they take their small admin cut, and then the rest comes down to us, in this case, as a DMO, and then we follow the business plan, the tactical business plan. So that's how it works. Does anybody have any further questions on that? No? Okay.
It's effective November 1st, Saturday.
Yeah.
The bills for accommodations will include the 3%.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful.
I'm going to give you an update on the Sooke to Port Renfrew Business Services Cooperative. We have Tandy Williams, who represents WorkLink Employment Society. She will often be representing Peter Dukakis, because Peter Dukakis will be retiring this year, unfortunately. And so I expect Tandy to be here a few times. So we're working through, and we now have an official new brand logo for it. It'll be called the Shoreline Business Services Cooperative. And I don't know if there's a tagline on that, Tandy. Is it Sooke to Port Renfrew? Yeah, Sooke to Port Renfrew. So we have a nice new logo and everything else. That I just saw that this morning. So we're very happy about it. We wanted to have our First Nations, Sooke First Nations, share some creative art on that logo, but unfortunately the capacity wasn't there and they informed us of that. Just last week, two representatives, Cooperatives First Canada, came to Sooke because they wanted to do a video of how successful we've been in starting this cooperative development movement. So they did some coverage at Cafe Vecino, and they did some coverage with the three directors of the business cooperative. And they were just thrilled with the whole way the interviews went. They were up at the conference for the rest of the week. And they said it's probably one of the best videos they've done. So they'll be sharing that with us shortly. And that's something we can put on our website to share with others, just how far we have come in trying to move cooperative modeling forward for Sooke, because I think it's a good thing to do. We hope to launch on a soft launch at the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. And I believe that Peter Dukakis, myself, and Deb Shank are the directors. We needed 3 directors to incorporate. We will be going out to open it up for more directors after we've done the initial soft launch, and that will be tied to the Business Excellence Awards. So hopefully January, February 2027, we should be up and running. The location is going to be in WorkLink's offices on Church. We have a couple of lines on possible funding opportunities to help fund a full-time person to be the front end person as you walk through the door. I had the opportunity at the conference last week to sit down with Van City, and they said they're going to give us money. So they love the whole project. It fits right within their mandate. And so things are moving along well. That's all I can tell you at this point. I'm sure I've shared the business plan with you previously. If you want to see the business plan, I can resend that. An update on the Juan de Fuca cross-border tourism corridor. Traveling the bioregion is the actual title of that, to shorten that long name. We expect the draft report to be tabled this month. And it's an exciting report. It doesn't just talk about regenerative tourism for the area. It talks about potential and realistic tourism business opportunities that will grow the destination, grow the revenues for our communities. And it also talks about the implementation. Just off the top of my head, there's only 3 that we zeroed in on as business opportunities, and that is electrified ferry system. I won't go into that very much. And circular biking tours that incorporate all the way through the Olympic Peninsula, through the Gulf Islands, US, Canadian, up through and up to Sooke and around. It's about extending night stays, extending the experience, all by reducing the GHGs. Very big project. And the other one is an experiential marine experience education center. You've seen something like that up in Tofino. You've seen it in Sydney. You've seen it on the Sunshine Coast. That's the other opportunity that's been identified. So it is going to require a lot of private sector investment. It's not going to be done overnight. You can expect this is long term. The steering committee has been established. I'm going to announce here, I am the chair for the bioregion, traveling the bioregion project. And we do have a vice chair who is American. Her name is Debbie Worthrop. She is the executive director of the Olympic Peninsula Tourism Authority, or I'm sorry, I haven't got the whole name there, but she's excellent. The whole steering committee is excellent. There might be room to add a few more people as others determine whether they've got the time to spend on the committee or not. It's only meeting 4 times a year. Let me see if there's anything else. I don't think so. No, and as soon as that report is tabled, I'll be sharing it with council and asking for a presentation to council. And that's the end of my report.
Hey, bravo again, Gail. Yeah, so much ongoing and all coming to fruition. Great work. Yeah,
Thank you.
much appreciated. I look forward to reading your report. Now, I just had a point of clarity there. So we as a committee get to read your report. Will it be included somehow in an online context for the public? Will it be part of our minutes, or will it be a postpartum supplemental agenda, or what do you think?
We could certainly add it in after the fact as a supplemental. I would also suggest that it is in video format, but we can certainly send out a copy to all of the committee. It's just not good form to send it out after the agenda's already been established. But we can certainly send it out to the committee, and we can look to include it perhaps as an information piece at the next meeting.
Yeah, just transparency is, of course, a vital component of our work here.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Councillor Bateman. I just also forgot to mention that part and parcel of the tourism strategy we were working on. Somewhere in between getting it started and working on it, Destination Canada decided they wanted to have a climate regenerative strategy done as well. And they did complete that. They've summarized it down into just a video link. And so I can share that with, because that's important. It's all about reducing the GHGs, making sure that it's all about regenerative tourism.
Thank you. So we're heading into our, I believe we're into the roundtable session. So Tadia, is that right? Would you like to share anything about WorkLink and what you're up to at this point? If you'd come to the mic and.
Sorry, Chair. Pardon
Hello.
me, Chair. Can we just have you call the item to question? Just the quick motion to receive for information?
Thank you. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Beddoes. All in favor? Yes. Someone with vertigo, you're on top of things. Yeah.
My name is Tandy Williams, and I'm representing. You'll probably be seeing more of me just because our executive director, Peter Dukakis, has announced his retirement, which is forthcoming. Essentially, we have been working, as Gail mentioned, on the Shoreline Business Services Cooperative. The website is in play, and we're sort of getting very excited about that piece. We continue to work with our colleagues at the Pacheedaht First Nation, running the Visitor Information Center in Port Renfrew. That information center has closed for the season, and we are sort of working with the nation to help them establish themselves more prominently, regionally, with tourism. So working to decide on sort of a strategy for us to exit and them to take over more of that work. So that's very exciting, and it's going to help to empower them to do that. So that's probably one of the biggest things, most exciting things anyways, that we're working on. So thank you.
Marlene, would you like to share from the chamber and CERTA and/or?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention Sooke Celebrates coming up on the 15th with the Business Excellence Awards and the comedy show. Our comedian is Dan Duval, the same guy that we had 3 years ago, and he was a huge hit. So if you come to the comedy show, you will not regret this. And I do want to invite everybody here to get a ticket if you haven't, and if that's your cup of tea, because it's the Business Excellence Awards are an excellent marketing opportunity for our local businesses. Not just, with the voting process and all the marketing that the chamber does in the fall, but also because if you're a nominee or a winner, you can use that to market your business year round, which, has been awesome, but it does hinge on the success of the event itself. So we need butts and seats. So, and then also that, again, already talked about the Shoreline Co-op being announced on the same night. So it's a more exciting than usual, potentially, for the people in this room. That's all I got from the chamber. I'm gonna have more exciting updates on the chamber and CERTA in the upcoming months, probably, as we're working on something cool, but it's maybe a little early to do that here. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Marlene. Now, we have one other guest in the house today, Michelle Richard from the Sooke Region Museum. And I see Nancy's holding her.
Sorry, through the chair. I know that you had provided a notice of motion to add a non-voting member, which certainly we can bring up to council. However, we were just realizing, and we thought we would note that the CDC's current term will be ending in February of 2026, at which time council is going to be reviewing the terms of reference at that time, and also deliberating about the structure perhaps. So we were just thinking that maybe we can continue to invite individuals as guests, and they can certainly partake, but we may not, instead of changing the terms of reference now, perhaps we want to wait until after that fact. Just a thought.
Fair game. So as chair, I'd like to invite you up to just share some thoughts on the museum and connection with the. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Michelle Richard, Executive Director of the Sooke Region Museum. The big update, our biggest news, there's always lots happening at the museum and the visitor center, but what's happening at the moment is we've just received the report from our community engagement project. So I hope and trust that all of you at least entered our online survey and submitted that we had online from February to the end of August 2025. We also were at least 10 community events throughout the summer. So we talked to, I think actually thousands of people to try to get feedback on perceptions of the museum, what we do, and input into how the community would like to see their museum in the future. So we're really excited. We've received that report in its draft format. It's going to the board of directors this week. And once that's been received, it will be available for public. And we believe in being accountable to the communities we serve. So the report will be available in its entirety through our website. And we will be rolling out in the coming months what we heard from that report and what we're doing in response to that. Fortunately, some of the things that we heard we're already working on. Other elements are short-term, we can certainly do. Others will be bigger long-term projects, but we're really thankful that we've had the input from the community, and we're really looking forward to implement some of the great ideas. So that's the big news. At the moment, we'll also be rolling out a membership campaign. So we'll be inviting people to be members of the Sooke Region Historical Society, and they can then have their voice in what happens and be part of the fun.
Okay, any questions of our guest?
To the chair, I'd just like to say that Michelle is also on our steering committee for the Wanda Fuca Strait cross-border. Very important person. She's an advocate of bike touring.
I had a quick question. It regards when we cut a new service agreement with the museum, there was talk of a mobile visitor center. Is that where do things stand with that?
It's something that I've only been with the museum for about a year and a half, but it's something that, as far as I've heard, has always been one of those wishes, is that we would love to have to meet the people where they are. Because at the moment, the way that our visitors information center works, as we are the designated Destination BC Visitor Center, we're at the place that we're at. And our funding has been stable for at least 20, if not 30 years. We have not received increase in funding. Last year, actually, we have relied on Canada Summer Jobs funding to hire visitor services counselors over the summer to be open 7 days a week. Last year, we got zero funding from Canada Summer Jobs. So we weren't able to be open 7 days a week. We opened 6 days a week. But having those mobile kiosks or whatever they might be has always been on our wish list. So we would absolutely be able to, if the resources were available, with the training that we do for the visitor information, the visitor services staff that come on in the summer, we would include more people in that training and be more than happy to deploy some sort of mobile units. And we've got a few places in mind because we know that everybody doesn't come to the info center. So we would like to be able to meet people, visitors where they are, to be able to inform them a bit better about what the opportunities are.
To the chair, just so everybody knows, in the 1-year MRDT tactical plan for 2026, mobile visitor services is one of the key items that we're going to tackle.
And hopefully the MRDT will provide some of those resources that we haven't had for many years to implement these kinds of projects that have been on wish lists for years.
It's a whole new world. Yes, with that money rolling in. I was, the other point I wanted to raise was the Evergreen Mall kiosk, which was a sort of a backup spot where you could at least see a map and as a visitor to town. I was curious what's happening with that now that I know it may be part of your wayfinding campaign. Christina?
That's to come. It's too premature to comment further on that at this stage.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We did have a motion in ready to roll, but I agree. Let's wait till February. And a reminder that this committee is likely to breathe its last gasp in July, based on what happened in 2022 with the committees at that point. So I'm hoping that one of the motions arising from this committee before we come to a close is the recommendation that the district ensure that the Standing Committee on Community Economic Development will continue in the new term, unbroken ideally, because I think it's good work being done here. Roundtable comments. Gwen, start off with you. And wait, Catherine.
I don't really have anything to add, but I do have a question about previous topics that have come up before regarding the CED strategy updating and the ECDEV Corporation.
Right.
Yes.
So those were two arising motions that did not make it onto our agenda, right? They were the Community Economic Development Corporation motion was from you and Tony, I believe, and we were struggling to understand the nature of a standing committee. So council must give us our marching orders, basically. So one of the things today, we got the SIP report onto the agenda because I made a motion at council. And I think it's incumbent on we councillors to bring these motions forward. Now, Tony, you could bring that very motion forward onto a regular council agenda and get it front and center for council to determine the next actions. I think that's the way to go to move forward out of this committee. And I was hoping that in these roundtables, as late as it is in the day here, it's not 4 o'clock, it's 5 to 3. Just, that we would identify, like, is there anything you'd like to see council direct back to this committee? And that's one way forward. So did I answer that question to your semi-satisfaction?
Well, I think clarifying how we as committee members get agenda items to this committee is still unclear to me. Maybe I'm missing something here, but those were two pieces that I would very much like to discuss here at the committee at some point.
So Nancy, would you like to interject at this point?
I can attempt to provide some clarification. So as a standing committee, the standing committee is formed through the mayor. And ultimately, it's looking at council as a whole determines what initiatives to move forward. And through that, we produce staff reports for the committee to look through and provide recommendations and such. And so, as the chair mentioned, some motions, if there is something that the committee really truly wants council to look at and see and discuss, then that would come through a committee, or sorry, a council meeting. So ultimately what you want to try to steer away from is bringing up motions to council that council doesn't have an appetite for, and or if there's a certain capacity for staff, or there's other initiatives that they want you looking at. And so that's what it helps clarify, so that what you're actually looking at and diving into and digging deep on certain topics are what council is looking at in terms of strategic plans and such. And there could be a wide range, such as the terms of reference is vast, but council will have a certain amount of priorities there. And so that's how it funnels through, and that's part and parcel why. But in terms of what we just discussed about the terms of reference coming back to council for the term, perhaps it's something that council discusses and decides that this doesn't function well for this type of committee, and it no longer becomes a standing committee. So there's still some possibilities there that the committee could change to a different kind of committee.
Yeah, thank you for that. The mayor mentioned this on Monday because we've had some, Councilor McMath in particular is curious about the nature of this committee. And so yes, at the time of the terms of reference review, that would be the moment for a rethink. Okay. Further comments on anything else? No?
Some. I just need to report out on the meeting that I had with the Sooke Food Systems Regional Network, because I am now the liaison. We had our first meeting just this week, or just last week, I should say. I think that Ms. Moak can attest it went really well. We have excellent opportunity for cooperation at this point in time, and I think that roles were clarified. At this point in time, it looks like first steps are going to be for working together with myself and Ms. Moak and the rest of the people at the table, figuring out a number of priorities. As it happens, the pod review, or the review of the pod project came up because there was a lot of interest in that particular project. There's a lot of interest in terms of the ag plan, or perhaps a food sovereignty plan, basically updating that particular document. Previously, as I remember, although it had a huge amount of useful information in terms of things to do, it didn't necessarily identify, for example, the top 3 priorities in terms of let's move forward strategically. I'm not sure, but I suspect that we should do something along those lines. More to follow, but certainly the first meeting went very well, and I think everyone's quite excited at the opportunities presented.
Gwen and then Al?
I'm ready now.
She's ready.
I'm still trying to figure out the whole process here and confidence in it all. But today, in all our meetings, it just feels like there's a lot of moving parts that are starting to feel like they can come together. And it's exciting. And I think it's important that, all this is recognized and we're on the cusp of so many changes with this pod, the food security, manufacturing, bringing jobs, that is very exciting, and then we have our tourism sector and our chamber and our museum trying to work together. I just feel really good about it all. I'm just being a little bit after all the years here, and I think I have been very cynical, and it feels so positive, and I think we need to share the wins with like the MRDT and all this that's coming forward at some of our events, because when I bring it up to businesses that have felt low and like they're not getting supported, I'm like, these are things that are coming, and it's all in the works. And this was before this committee. But I learned through tourism because I was on tour, have been with tourism for 2 years now. So I think the communication, we have a great communication, and I keep saying that to businesses, and even my husband, when he complains about stuff, I'm like, sign up. Listen to what Christina sends out, read it, show up at the OCP if you're complaining about it. But what I'm feeling with this group that wants this food, it's such a smart idea for our community. And I think people from outside could use it. They could look at Machosen could buy into this, and lots of farmers. It's a real win-win. I think we need, now this is a thing maybe, my mom was a counselor and mayor for a long time back in her days. And I remember her coming home from a meeting say, we got it. And the Bungie, it's now called Bungie, but it was a canola plant that came to Wainwright, and it employed 80 people, which was a big win for our town back then, and still would be. And she said, what we had to do, we had to give a tax break for 5 years and water. The water is included in our taxes back home. And she said, that 5 years is going to go so fast, and all these jobs and that canola plant is still operating, and there's more people. And now, this is maybe something I haven't seen our district do to get industry here. I don't know if BC has different rules, if it's just a fear factor because we get so much criticism from our citizens, but it's something to think about. That if we want industry, we want a pod to come in, we got to make some, we got to encourage them with some breaks maybe. I think it's a discussion that council maybe could look at. That's how you get manufacturing and industry that creates jobs and people off the highway. There's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's very, very good 2 cents, at least a quarter's worth. I think in the strat plan, there is a business recruitment aspect that Gail, can I ask you about that? Where do things stand?
Yes, it is within the CED strategy. However, the very first thing we need to do is carry out that employment land use strategy. We need to look at every single pocket and parcel of land within Sooke and to have it identified as best use for what type of business. Then we'll have a much better understanding of who we have to go after to attract. I can tell you it's going to be clean and green, because if it isn't, it's not going to be considered. I just don't know how many parcels of land are out there yet. I really don't. That falls kind of within planning and development. But that's why this strategy is so very important. And that's why it was talked about so much at the Bahia conference last week by every single community, how important it is to have that employment land use strategy so you know where to go in the future. Now, what we've applied for is just money to carry out the strategy. That's the consulting service. It has to be phased. So phase 2, if we get it, would be looking at, once the strategy is done, now, what do we put in place as far as business attraction campaign goes? And then identifying what businesses or what industry to go after. The next phase would be working on and with planning and development on permitting and development permits and everything to make it easier and faster. Fast is the number one thing that came out the last week, is we've got to all improve the length of time it takes to get the development permit. Every single community said that. So you can see the phased approach, and it's not an overnight thing, but I'm so happy we had the opportunity to put our application in. Don't even ask me what if it doesn't get approved, because I will be upset.
But we do have that very good 2019 report that does look at business and commercial industrial lands. And yeah, the SIP report also makes that very clear, that it would like to see communities state we're open for business, and this is what we'd like to come to our town. Maybe no more pizza. Maybe put that as a pizza parlor. There's another pizza parlor going in where Bits of Bliss. There's yet another. It will. Okay, Alberto's.
Yeah, I just, I really like what Gwen said. It was exactly where I was going with things. When I first came on this committee, as I've been on other committees, I was wondering whether it was going to be one of those committees where we just wring our hands and moan and groan about thing and nothing happened. The hotel tax has been a game changer. That is just brilliant. I see today you've got the museum, the Historical Society, excited because there could be some funding there which they haven't been able to get, and will benefit all of us. So that's good news. So I'm seeing things happen. They're slow. Municipal politics is slow. It's been 2 terms, and I'm just still frustrated by things how slow they move. The pod, again, I share that excitement. If these guys can this group can pull it off, I agree. We bend over backwards to assist them. If we have to give some tax breaks away, so be it. But there's things moving. So I'm glad to see it's not stagnant, and I'm glad to see your enthusiasm, because you're on the front lines down there, and keep coming, keep giving me your opinions. And yeah, I share your enthusiasm. I just hope these things do pan out. The nice thing about it is if they don't, well, it's nothing ventured, nothing gained. We have to give it a try. And that was exciting. And Gail, on the hotel tax, again, that's going to pay off in spades over the next couple of years. I don't know about we got to watch about the land use. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to come about. I mean, it's nice enough to identify land, but as soon as we start identifying land, we're dealing people's private property. And one thing I found out in the 2 terms here is you start telling people what they can do with their property, and they get really, really upset. It doesn't always correlate in their mind what they want to do with it, but it's an exercise that we're probably going to have to take. But just we have to be very cautious when we do that one. But anyways, I thought it was good. Thanks.
Okay, I'll close out. I made these motions at council this last month, and the next meeting we will have a look at the 2010 Arts Wave Cultural Mapping Project. If at some of our meetings we've had attendance from arts representatives, and they're interested in the district again, showing some love towards that sector. The Sooke program of the Arts Committee is in hiatus. And this committee's mandate is very broad. It includes health and wellness and the arts as well. So I hope that I'll send some invites out to various key people from the Fine Arts and Sooke Arts Council. Sally Manning was very involved in that 2010 report. She might like to come out and share some thoughts. There was also the SPA's final act was to create back in 2022 was a update on that plan. So council received it at the time, and it's been sitting there ever since. So this is an opportunity to bring that up. And what we do with this, we might recommend, I don't know, we'll see. So that's upcoming. I just wanted to quickly share from the budget what we heard report 2026. It's really interesting to see the feedback from there were, well, 1,700 people participated in this survey this year, which was phenomenal, both in person and online. And residents are calling for more local jobs, small business support, tourism initiatives to diversify the tax base and reduce commuting. There's a whole range of things that in fact the district is undertaking now. And as you say, Gwen, it's happening. It's underway. So there's reasons to be optimistic and positive. So yeah. So on that note, I think I've got nothing more to say. And I think motion to adjourn. Councillor Beddoes, seconded by St. Pierre, all in favor? Okay,